Alright guys, we got another week of Whitetail Wednesday. So we've been doing the scouting efficiency series. We did marshes, we did hills. Now we're doing everyone's favorite, the big woods. Big woods are intimidating to a lot of people, but they're honestly fairly easy to break down if you know what to look for. I'd say 80 to 90% of your north woods is just dead woods where you're not going to see a lot of deer. But I'm going to show you in this video the 10 to 15% that you should be looking for. So let's dive into the map here. This is a private land chunk, a big private land chunk up in the Northwoods. Like I said, I'm not marking up public land pieces here just to save guys spots on hunting public land. Just feel like it's ethical thing to do. But it is a good map to learn from here. So the first thing we were going to talk about is 85 to 90% of these woods probably aren't something that you're going to want to deer hunt. A lot of monoculture over here. This is an area of pretty much probably mature timber with not a lot of food, not a lot of bedding or anything like that. Here's another section over here. That's a big monoculture of probably the same stuff. So you want to avoid that stuff. What you want to look for in the big woods is this type of stuff. You want to find big old swamps like this. They hold a lot of edge, a lot of transition, that sort of thing. And another thing that you want to look for, looks like we got a little clear cut right here. Those clear cuts are another good place to find edge up in the big woods. Now we're going to zoom up on the map and how I would break this swamp and that clear cut down efficiently and fast, just to see if there's deer in this location. We all know that the deer densities are a lot lower up there, so we're just trying to find deer at this point. So as we zoom up in the map here, park right here, and got a couple points of interest up here. The first one right here, this is something I might consider putting a trail camera up on public land, is this little isolated water hole right there. The reason I like it is because you got probably some bedding along this transition here, and this clear cut is a food source, and it'd be a good area to catch deer getting a drink, head into that clear cut. And if we zoom on, my second pin that I really like, it's a cool spot because you have so much different diversity in the spot. I'm not sure if this is a lake or a cut, but you have this cut right here, and you have it bumped up next to this transition right here of these tamaracks and more open hardwoods, and there's kind of a bowl right here in the swamp where potential bedding locations would be. And I like the amount of diversity that's in this area. So then we stay on our blue line here. I'd probably walk this out to the transition right here. And we get to our next point of interest. We have a little point here. So this is kind of like something I call a reverse point, where you typically think of the points going into the marshes, but this is actually a hardwood point going down into kind of like a little lowland type area. And you can definitely see bucks bedding off this round tip right here, looking into the marsh potentially. Or if the marsh is thicker, this is why I call it reverse. Say if this east side is thicker, they could be potentially looking into these open hardwoods. So this is scenario dependent of how it lays out. The only way you know which way this deer will be bedding is by actually getting boots on the ground. So if the stuff to the east is thicker and they can look towards the west in the open hardwoods, that they could bed that way. However, if this hardwoods is a little bit thicker and the swamp's a little bit more open, they could bed off this point looking down into the swamp. So that's really boots on the ground. You won't be able to figure that out until you're on the ground. Now we continue to walk this transition. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. continue to walk this transition. Long walk. Bigwoods marsh here. And we have another point of interest that I really like. We have our hardwoods over here. We have kind of this tamaracks come right here. Then you got like some pine type stuff. You got 3 different habitats plus this creek right here. You could definitely see some potential bedding type setup right there where they could be overlooking this creek or something like that, because this is open, and having this timber, this thicker stuff to their back and going to feed in these open hardwoods depending on if they're oaks or not. We're gonna pretend this is the winter time of year so we can cross this creek. And as we cross the creek, we go to a really interesting part of this swamp. We got a lot of stuff going on over here. Pretty excited to talk about it. So right here, we have this hourglass type shape. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, where this funnel pinches deer down. So these deer that are cruising this swamp edge are probably going to be cruising that deer in the rut, trying to find does on each side of this little land bridge that's going on right here. So that might be a good rut setup. Then another reason I like this area is because all the different islands here that these deer could bed on. My favorite one's probably this one, just how this little knob goes out into the island. Looks like a group of thick stuff there where they could be looking out to the swamp. But I would check every single one of those islands. And another nice little land bridge feature right here that I really like is just a small little land bridge type funnel here, where it can allow the bucks to stay in thick cover here while cruising the edge of this swamp and not going into the open hardwoods over here. So I really like that spot, and it really tightens the movement down, and it's a pretty far access from the parking area. Then we head up over here. We got another big point coming to the marsh. Just a lot of habitat. You got this smaller tamarack type stuff, and you have more tamarack pines up top, and you can just tell like how thick those smaller tamaracks are. And you have the open hardwoods right here. I mean, you got like 3 or 4 different habitat types coming right there. Got kind of the similar setup over here. So I really like this northeast end of the swamp. I'd say the most dominant feature is the bowl to this point. Be a lot of good potential up in that area. Bucks bedding in this bowl. Sorry, bucks bedding in this bowl potentially. Catching them if there's hunters set up on this edge. They have a lot of swirling type stuff in those bowls. You could see something big bed in there. Sorry for being vague right there. But then we have this point too that's a nice feature where deer could be bedding off this point and heading up to these hardwoods to feed at night, depending on if they're oaks or not. Have another feature over here. Another small little land bridge connected to this island right here. And we head on down. You're gonna hear this word a lot. Another little land bridge. Most of your bigger bucks are not gonna be up in these hardwoods. They're gonna be using these land bridges where it's a little bit thicker, thermal sucking down to that marsh. They can scent check a lot more when they're cruising these lowland land bridge type deal. You got a little funnel and a potential bedding point right here. You got a bedding point on this side and a bedding point right here, where you could also have some rut cruising from point to point along this transition edge, and potential bedding right here and facing into the swamp to get that wing or to catch predators coming up from behind them, because most of their predators are going to be coming from the mainland up in the big woods, especially in wolf type populations. Then we head down here, got another little point that extends. Of course, these deer do have to bed on dry land, otherwise they'll get hypothermia. If the tamaracks are high enough out of the water, they will bed up on the tamaracks. Then we head south here. We got a little bowl here where you can see some bucks bedding. Another point. And like I was saying, the bucks could potentially be bedding their back to the swamp if the swamp's thicker and looking out to the hardwoods. You really got to get your boots on the ground to actually see what that's going to look like. Then this is a big feature right here. This big beaver dam right here. That's a big point of interest. I would check this side first. And the reason I like beaver dams, especially if they're mudded in, you can see if there's good bucks around. You can probably tell the amount of deer density that's up there based off the amount of tracks that's in the mud on those beaver dams. And a lot of the times you'll find rubs coming off the beaver dams because they use the beaver dams to cruise during the rut quite a bit because they can cover a lot more ground a lot more quickly that way. Then we head down here. We got another point looking over this marsh here. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on down here. Each one of these little points is they could bed up on this point, look down into the open area in the marsh. Then we head over here to the other side of the beaver dam. Here's another beaver dam right here. So there's a bigger one, then there's a smaller one. And just setting up on either side of these beaver dams, you can get some good rut cruising during that time period. And they also bed along beaver dams too. Yeah, and I've seen them bed right on top of beaver dams also. So beaver dams are a huge critical feature when hunting the bigwoods, especially during the rut when they're doing their rut circuits. Then we head towards the south a little bit more, towards the parking area. We have another land bridge type feature. You got a swamp marsh right there, then you have a swamp type marsh on the backside, and another opportunity at cruising the rut, or cruising for the rut, is using that land bridge. Then we have a little island here where deer could be bedded earlier in the season and whatnot, head into these oaks or whatever type of hardwoods that there are to feed on. Well guys, I hope that helped you guys out how to break down a bigwoods scenario very quickly by doing a 1 or 2 day scout. That was about 4 miles of walking if you got the boots on the ground. The biggest thing about bigwoods is finding the most habitat diversity in an area in transitions and figuring out which side's the thick transition and what side's the open transition. Like I said, the only way to know that is by getting boots on the ground. And I guess another big point is don't overlook those beaver dams, especially during the rut. Bucks really like to use those, and they also like to use them for bedding because all that scent from the ridges throughout the day sinks down to that swamp. So that's another reason they like to use those. And you can use them to identify if there's deer in the area, if there's big buck tracks in the area, is there rubs coming off that beaver dam. There's so much that those beaver dams can tell you. Hopefully this helps you guys. Thanks for watching this series, and I'm starting to pull trail cameras here, so maybe we'll talk about that in the next Whitetail Wednesday. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.